everybody, and welcome to Mindset Matters. I'm John J. Murphy, an instructor for Fuel, and this is a production of Fuel. If you're not familiar with Fuel, I urge you to check it out at www.myfuel.io. Myfuel.io. It's a fantastic, fastest growing e-learning platform in the world with fantastic instructors. And now with AI twin capabilities. So for example, I have an AI twin you can interact with 24/7 for coaching, for role playing. It's quite phenomenal. In fact, my twin has been downloaded with 40 years of my body of work, books I've written, hundreds of articles, hundreds of interviews and YouTube clips, things like that. So it's an excellent resource for you. On anything from mindfulness to leading with wisdom, a creative problem solving, living beyond doubt, fearless, if you will. In fact, I have a podcast every Friday called Fearless, and this Friday I will be hosting Mary Pat Knight, a transformational leader, author, and just a wonderful executive coach. And it will be on the topic of what do great leaders know about themselves that others don't? So it'll be a fun topic. Today, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence, a key differentiator among leaders. In fact, IQ, your cognitive intelligence, if you will, your intellect, only accounts for about 10 to 20% of your success in life. Far more powerful, more than twice as powerful, is EQ or EI, emotional quotient or emotional intelligence. So I'm going to describe 4 key competencies with a subcompetency, a fifth, if you will, essentially called self-motivation. And I urge you now, as you go through this, to basically pause and be mindful of where you are in each of the 4 quadrants, if you will. So in terms of quadrants, think about this as a 4 square model, if you will, right? And down one side of the model is at the top column is basically awareness. I'll use the word just awareness across the top. And across the bottom is action, which includes motivation and management, if you will. So awareness across the top and action across the bottom. And then down the columns, so those are across the rows, down the columns, the first column is self, and the second column is social or others. So now when you think about it, that upper left quadrant is self-awareness. So we start there. We start with self-awareness, and then these actually help us develop the other competencies. So in that upper left is self-awareness. What does that mean? Well, it means just how aware am I moment to moment to moment throughout the day of how I am feeling and what I am thinking, which triggers how I'm feeling. And in the past Mindset Matters episodes, I've talked about things like your EGS, your emotional guidance system. Your emotional guidance system is telling you essentially where you are in terms of thinking and feeling. So if you're not feeling great, if you're not feeling confident, if you're not feeling poised, patient, thoughtful, why not? Do you know why not? So that's the self-awareness piece. What do I know about myself in terms of personality? I did an episode on Mindset Matters using the Myers-Briggs type indicator. What are my preferences? Am I more of an introvert, more of an extrovert? How balanced am I? Am I more of a sensing type, details, facts, tactical, or more intuitive? Big picture, patterns, meaning, S and N in the Myers-Briggs. Which one am I and how balanced am I? How about thinking and feeling? What am I? Am I more of an analytical, logical kind of personality? Or am I more of a feeling, nurturing kind of personality? And then perceiving and judging. Am I more of a perceiving, open, spontaneous, kind of adaptive personality, or am I more structured, more disciplined, more judgment? That's just one tool, using the Myers-Briggs to gain self-awareness. So this is where we look inward, because this is essential. What we're feeling inward. There's a tool called the inner balance that I've taught and shared. It's in one of my courses, Beyond Doubt, on fuel. Inner balance is by the Institute of Heart Math. They also have a tool called M-Wave, which you can put on your laptop. Inner balance works right off your phone, and with a sensor, all right, you clip to your ear, it's reading something called your heart coherence. I like to call that your vibe. So what vibe are you putting out? What vibe are you putting out? Because that vibe is attracting a similar vibe. And people read these vibes. Scientists have now discovered something called mirror neurons, brain cells, part of your motor neuron system. And these mirror neurons, there's a part of our brain that actually reads the same part of another person's brain. So before you even say words, there's a connection going on there. Now, the more positive and the more optimistic, the more wise we are, people pick up on that. They're like, I can follow this person. This person has influence over me because I trust him. There's a connection there electromagnetically. This is science, not philosophy, to quote Einstein. So it was in like 1991 in Parma, Italy, where these mirror neurons were discovered by a neuroscientist, a doctor. And all of a sudden, people start to realize this is essential in terms of emotional intelligence. So it's essential, it's critical to know what's going on in my vibe and what affects my vibe. If I'm not putting out a positive vibe, which means I'm going to be attracting more positivity into my life. If I'm not putting out a positive vibe, why not? It's essential that you get to that root cause. And the root cause, essentially, and you've heard me talk about this a lot, is an attachment to ego, because the ego is divisive. It's dualistic, us and them, you and me, right and wrong, up and down. It's divisive. It's dualistic, and it's fear-based. So if I'm attached to ego, the false self, the small s self, all right, then I'm going to have feelings ranging from shame, guilt, grief, apathy, fear, anxiety, lust, desire, anger, and pride. I've talked about the map of consciousness before. Incidentally, if you've not seen some of these episodes, go back and watch them. The map of consciousness is a phenomenal tool showing different frequencies for different feelings. Those feelings I just listed, all the way up to pride, are ego feelings. And when you're attached to ego, you will never be satisfied. The ego can't be. It's got to have more and more and more and more. So as long as you're attached to that thought system, it's a thought system, until you detach from that and you cross the bridge of courage, as I call it, and you get up into the realm of neutrality, reason, contemplation, weighing, oneness, connectedness, appreciation, gratitude, love, unconditional love, joy, inner peace, and ultimately enlightenment. That's a whole different level on that scale. When you get up into that level of spirit, in spirit, fearlessness changes everything. Now, in terms of emotional intelligence, that vibe is picked up on by other people. This is why it's such an essential leadership skill. And it can be developed because it's behavioral. Okay. This is a skill that can be developed because it's behavioral. So I start with self-awareness, that upper left quadrant, and I take time. I meditate every day, every morning. I take time, no phone, no laptop, nothing. And I meditate on what is it I'm feeling? What is it I'm thinking that triggers that feeling? Bringing my thinking to the present. Mindful that I'm not going to let my thinking take off into, well, the projects I have to do today or something that happened last week. No, it's about being present and paying attention to your breathing. I teach the quick coherence technique on my course Beyond Doubt, which is from the Heart Math Institute, Institute of Heart Math. And when you use the quick coherence technique and you're hooked up, if you will, to the inner balance that's reading your vibe instantly, If you start thinking negative, you start thinking worry, you start thinking anxiety, instantly that device tells you that. Says you're putting out a dangerous vibe right now, John. You need to reset, bring it back. So it's a tool for coaching and self-development. I've had it for many years, and it's a wonderful tool. And once you get the hang of it, you don't need to walk around with a sensor on your ear. I certainly don't. But the quick coherence technique, which is essentially you start by deep breathing into a count of 4 or 5, out to a count of 4 or 5, very rhythmic, just a simple exercise. Then you start visualizing that you're actually breathing through your heart, not just your lungs, but you feel your heart calming, breathing. All right. So heart breathing. And then the third step, it's really 3 steps, heart focus, heart breathing, and then heart appreciation. So now you start thinking about something true you truly appreciate, your life, the gifts you've been giving, the relationships you have, the job that you have, whatever you appreciate, something positive. You could imagine having your dog or cat on your lap or whatever, something that just brings you pure joy, and that changes your vibe, if you will, your heart coherence. It raises it. And that's what you want to do. So all of that starts with self-awareness, really taking inventory. I've used this over the years to gain great insight into what's going on in me internally. What beliefs and programs am I running on? And what programs are dangerous? I've talked in the past about the I'm not worthy program I grew up with. I'm not worthy. I said it every week in church. That was a dangerous program because it essentially defeated any attempts I had at success, because I'm sabotaging myself, because that's a deep-seated belief. I'm not worthy of that, success, if you will. I'm not worthy of that relationship. I'm not worthy of that level of income. I'm not worthy of that level of performance. You know, uh, Delete that program and everything changes. But you got to know what programs you're running on. So this takes us back to self-awareness. I can't emphasize that enough. We take time to really become aware of what's going on internally. Now, if you go across to others and social awareness, if you will, social relationships, now we're still on that top row of awareness, from self now to others. Now we turn our awareness outward. Okay, so how aware am I about how my children are feeling and what they're thinking? How aware am I of my employees, what they're thinking? How aware am I of what my boss is thinking? How aware am I of people around me when I'm in the grocery store or I'm driving down the highway? How aware am I of what's going on around me? Now, we both know we've run across people who have, it seems like, no awareness whatsoever. It's like they're the only one on the planet, the narcissist times 2. That's the opposite of what I'm talking about here. This is about tuning in to the world around you, which is why empathy is such an important leadership skill. People want to feel understood. So you want to understand yourself, but you want to understand the people around you. So we seek to understand. What does that mean? It means we listen carefully. Okay. We tune in to whoever it is we're dealing with. And this is what I've done for many years now in my line of work as a consultant. I had to get aware of my own thoughts and feelings, my own doubts and limitations, delete those programs, expand, and then really tune into my audience. I like to say, know your audience, whether it's one person you're talking to or negotiating with or dealing with, or it's a room full of people or a stadium full of people that you're speaking to. What is it your audience needs and wants? Okay. And are you tuned into that? So are you connected? You can talk and talk and talk all day, but if you're not connecting with the people who are listening to you or observing you, you have absolutely no influence. So this is critical in my line of work because I'm a consultant and I go into organizations. I have no authority. I can't make anybody do anything, but I can influence change and improvement. Okay. When I connect with people, And I can connect with people using different methodologies, different tools, if you will. So here's a model. I use DMAIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. I've got a course on that. So how do we work through a process improvement? How do we make things better? How do we resolve certain conflicts, customer issues, things like that? We have a proven methodology that keeps everybody on one page. So I use tools like that, okay, to pull people together and to create awareness, not just my awareness of what's going around me, but elevate their awareness of what's going on in their own company, what's going on in their own lives. This is what great coaches do. They help people understand the first quadrant, self-awareness, and then their social awareness. How well are you interacting with people? I use the term perception warp in my book, Pulling Together. Perception warp is when what I think you think is different than what you really think. You're thinking something different than what I think you're thinking. I might think, oh, you think I'm a great boss and, I'm this lovable guy. And, what you really think is, you're blabbermouth. You talk too much. You don't listen, I just sort of pretend like I hear you, but there's that warp, that disconnect. So we want to attack that perception warp, because perception warp ruins marriages. It ruins relationships right and left. Okay. So no, that's the top row. We've got self-awareness and social awareness. Now, if we go down that first column where we had self-awareness, right below that is self-management and self-motivation. Really two competencies, if you will, in one. But self-management is keeping your word. It's being integrous. It's showing up on time. It's managing your mind and not letting your mind manage you. It's taking control of your thoughts, recognizing I can change my thoughts. And by changing my thoughts, I can change my feelings. I have the power to change my vibe. And that's essential if I'm going to lead people effectively. Again, with those mirror neurons, we're actually connected all together. Everybody, there's a connection. And this is why some people will just sort of replay or mirror, if you will, what somebody else is doing, because there's a deeper, more energetic connection. It's not just a physical thing. It's non-physical. All right, so now we're in that self-management and self-motivation. So self-motivation, how proactive am I? Okay, am I a procrastinator, or do I just step up and get things done? All right, when I start something, do I finish it? This is where we really take inventory of our lifestyle, our leadership style, okay, our character, our integrity, so that people can trust us. It's just a bedrock, if you will, in leadership. So I trust myself and I'm trusted by others. I'm aware of myself and I'm aware of others. There's a cohesiveness here, integrity, integrated, all right? Essential. So now we move over on that lower row from self-management and self-motivation to social management, if you will. You could even throw in social motivation, if you will. But now this is where we're now pulling people together. This is cooperative. This is where we really get cohesive as a team. Now, think about that. As a leadership skill, it's absolutely essential. Pulling people together, applying service leadership with them, service guidance, really helping create awareness among the team. So when I go into an organization, I'm very aware of my own body language, what I say and how I say it, the questions I ask to pull and learn, right? So starting right there. I'm also very aware of my self-management requirements. It's self-motivation. I have to be proactive. I have to be optimistic. Okay. I have to be on time, and I have to keep the team on time, if you will. That's an important respect characteristic of teamwork. Let's all respect one another by being on time. And then also, of course, respecting one another and the diversity that we share, things like that. So those are the four and the fifth competency of emotional intelligence, if you will. We've got self-awareness. I want you to just pause for a moment now and just think about that. Where's one area of my life, I could dig a little bit deeper. In my case, I mean, I was reading books on this stuff 40 years ago. I really wanted to understand what's going on in my mind. I've used these skills, these emotional intelligence skills, athletically through my life. As a quarterback, you have to be very aware of yourself, what you're feeling. If you're feeling nervous and anxious and afraid, you're not going to go very far. So you've got to develop that inner confidence, that inner trust. All right, what I like to call poise. Now that's self-awareness, self-management. What's that all about? It's about showing up on time. It's about working out in the gym. It's about taking care of your body. It's about being fit. It's about being aware of what you eat, okay, and what you drink and how you treat your body. All right. It's about practice, repeatedly practicing whatever it is you're doing to get better and better at it, which helps you then gain confidence. So self-awareness, self-management, self-motivation, go the extra mile. Okay. Put in the extra hours if that's what it takes. This is where EI is such a differentiator among for success. Okay. Smart people don't get very far in life. Cognitive, intellectual, academic people, okay, that's helpful, absolutely. But that doesn't differentiate you, okay, as a true, genuine sage leader, which I like to talk about, sage leadership, leading with wisdom, not intellect, but wisdom, deeper wisdom, and an energetic connection where people just, wow, I love to be around this person. They really bring out the best in me. So you're helping other people develop emotional intelligence. And when you do that, you develop your own further and further and further. You just become more and more aware. There is just so much we don't know, even about ourselves, that if you commit, that's another self-management, self-motivation thing. You commit from the heart. It's not just agreeing from the head. It's truly committing from the heart. I'm going all in on this. I want to really learn about what's going on in my mind and how I connect with other people's minds and my heart connection with other people's hearts, soul to soul, so to speak. Now, in sports, you've also got to be very aware of what's going on around you. If you're a quarterback, you better be reading the defense. You better be conscious, if you will, of everything in the environment that's going on around you. That's essentially social awareness, awareness of others. And then finally, your job is to pull people together, to pull the team together and play as one. That's discipline. All right. That's managing the social situation. All right. So those are the competencies. Now, I urge you to start thinking about step one, my social awareness, my self-awareness. Step one, my self-awareness, and identify one area you could work on, and then move into self-management, self-motivation. What could I do to develop better listening skills? What could I do to develop more patience in my life? What could I do to develop more confidence in my life? What can I do to gain confidence in my life? Again, confidence comes from practice and the belief that you can do whatever it is you're setting out to do. So practice. How can I delete certain programs that aren't serving me well in my mind, in that subconscious mind? What can I do to identify those and then delete them? This is a lifelong practice. It's something I've been doing for a long time, and I'm still doing it. Okay, every day reflecting on how am I feeling in the now. It's always about the now. And if I feel myself getting off track or out of alignment, if you will, and the EGS, your emotional guidance system, will tell you that, John, you're getting angry. Why are you getting angry? I use the term mind the gap. There's always a gap between stimulus and response. You poke me, I can respond instantaneously, habitually, by poking you back, getting into some conflict, getting into some argument, or I can deflect. I can mind the gap. Well, let me think about that. So those are powerful choices we can make. So true empowerment is minding our own mind, not letting our mind control us, our habitual mind. So let's recognize those patterns through self-awareness. And then things like deleting faulty programs is action. All right. That's self-management, self-protection in some way, self-motivation. That's essential. We've got to act on whatever it is we identify as needing a change. And when we do this and we really get to the point where we are poised and confident and attentive, listening to other people, seeking to understand, we're not pushing our agenda, pushing our autobiography on people, taking people into the weeds, talking trivia, talking about a bunch of boring, meaningless stuff. Unless people, that's what they want, but great leaders don't do that. They bring in people's attention back to what really matters, all right, in terms of growth and development and customer service, if we're in business, health and well-being and in our personal lives. Let's bring attention back to what really matters in life, our priorities that keep us healthy and well. Let's bring it back. And that's that whole social awareness. And then what can we do to improve the environment around us? What can we do to improve our service? All right, whether it's to customers or to one another, what can we do to improve our processes, to make things flow better? It's what I do for a living as a consultant. Let's go in and let's make sure our processes and the systems we use are optimal. They're user-friendly. They're easy. People aren't tripping all over themselves trying to get a job done that should take 10 minutes and then ends up taking 10 days. No, we want to get smooth systems. And so we want to be aware of what's going on in our own businesses. That's step one. When I come in and I reveal facts and data to senior managers who don't know that that's actually how their business is behaving, it's shocking in many cases. It's like, well, how could we take that long to do something that should take a day or two? Well, how can we take 4 weeks? Well, the facts are we do. And it's because there's all these gaps and all these reworks and all these loops, and there's people that, that aren't linked together. There's no flow. So that's what we fix. That's being attentive to the environment around us, really being tuned in, leading with attention. And then of course, the competency next, and you could think about, how well do I pull people together? How well am I perceived as a true, influential, credible, trustworthy leader? Now, some businesses go so far as to do 360 type reviews where you're being reviewed by your peers, you're being reviewed by your subordinates, you're being reviewed by your superiors. That's the whole 360. You're getting feedback, which helps you with your self-awareness, also helps you understand where they're coming from in terms of maybe perception warp in some cases, but what do they see in you? And if they don't see something very positive, very trusting, then they're going to just dismiss a lot of what you have to say or what you have to offer. They might be nodding their heads, yeah, I get it, and they're just going, no way. By the way, this applies to parents raising children, not just leaders running businesses. It applies essentially to all human interactions, if you will. These are interpersonal skills that are essential. So those are the 4 competencies, plus that 5th, which falls in with self-management, self-motivation. Some people teach this as 5 competencies. I like to just look at it in that 4-box quadrant, 4 quadrants, if you will. Just helps you arrange the awareness across the top with the actions, okay, down the side, and awareness down the sides, actions across the top. Anyway, so that's it for Mindset Matters today. In 2 weeks, we've got Danielle coming back to discuss more around emotional intelligence and the whole human factor, if you will, and how do we bring out the best in ourselves and in one another. And then this Friday on Fuel, the Fearless Show, I'll be hosting Mary Pat Knight, as I mentioned before, and we will be talking about transformational leadership, leading through change, and what do great leaders know that nobody else knows about them. Some pretty interesting stuff. That's this coming Friday. With that, I wish you well. Mindset matters. Pay attention to your mind. Control your mind. Don't let it control you. And work on your emotional intelligence. It's something you can develop. It's behavioral, and anybody around you will appreciate it.